the meaning of promise is a declaration that something will or will not be done, given by one. The second definition is abandon, to leave completely and finally forsake utterly. I say I'm coming from Matthew 27:46, which is, I'm going to read that one more time. This is when Jesus was on the cross and he was in his final moments. And it said, about 3 o'clock, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me or abandoned me? And my subtitle again is, what happened when the promise doesn't look like the promise? I want to speak on a situation that has happened years ago. And that verse really stood out to me because, now walking, my best to follow Christ and learn his word, it did something to me, and it brought me back to a time that I didn't really want to speak on tonight, that it really hurts me to the core, that I really didn't want to, but Lord said that, I want you to share this. So, that stood out to me because so many times, I know I've been in situations where I know God is in it, God is in my life, and it just sometimes don't seem fair why I go through certain things I go through. I know back in 2016, I was a single mom of 3 boys, and I ended up being in a relationship, which was, it was kind of like a fresh relationship. And my children's father, I don't have anything against him. I forgive him. I just wanted to put that out there. I forgive him. And he had took my boys for the summer of 2016. And when he took them, it was like a surprise. He had, showed up with a court order, that says that he gets them for the summer. It was actually mailed to me. I don't know if anyone of you guys went through court process, but it was actually mailed to me. And, it was like, okay, boys get to stay with their father for the summer. So, and there was another court order, in order after the boys had left me. So, they went away for the summer, and that was like my last time seeing them after 3 years later, due to him, just wanting to get custody. And it was kind of like a shock to me. It was moments where I was so confused and I didn't understand, like, what? I don't get this. How in the world? I don't know. I didn't know the court and how the court and stuff went. But because we had court orders outside of where I was staying, which was in Charlotte, and we had court orders in Pennsylvania, it was like nothing was able to be settled. However, I fought tooth and nail to try to get my boys back. And just the process alone was very hurtful. The process alone was very lonely. The people that I thought was going to be around wasn't around. The people that I thought that was really there wasn't really there. I just really felt like I was doing it alone. And in times of hurt, because my children, they were my heart. They were I took care of them from birth, from the time I was born up to this point that all of a sudden they just snatched from me. And I haven't heard from them like over a year, within that first year, and it bothered me. And I just couldn't give up. But this time of this process has allowed me to also get closer with God, in Christ. But it's still not actually the same walk that I'm walking now. However, there's times where I went to where they live at in Pennsylvania, And I just remember a time where I had got the court orders like finalized. Like this is like 2 years after, actually. 2 years after, like 2.5 years after, actually. And it was where I was able to get my children on holidays and even summers and Thanksgiving. And it was to a point where it was one time where I drove all the way up to New York, Pennsylvania from North Carolina, to get them for Thanksgiving. And I was communicating with their dad. And, I wasn't able to talk to the boys throughout this process, but I was able to communicate with their father to let him know I'm on my way and everything. And he knew. And I remember reaching there like 2 a.m. after a long drive, and he looked me dead in my face. Like he wasn't even planning on giving the boys to me. He didn't give them to me. And I remember him looking me in my face and act like he didn't know what I was there for. What do you mean? You're not getting them. He told me you're not getting them. And that was such a hurtful feeling. And in the midst, I did pray, and I did ask God, like, Lord, what is going on here? Like, I don't get this. Like, like, this is too long for me, But at the same time, it allowed me to gain a relationship, and just speak to him more, like, and just, even though I was hurting and I could have, like, cursed him out and all this stuff, but it was to a point where I was kind of numb, but numb in a way knowing that I need to be still and not respond in my flesh. However, this whole scenario with, their father doing that, it was very hurtful and it was very painful and it was very long and stretching. I knew that the promise was that I was going to get my children. I knew this, but just the process, sometimes the process can seem like it's like, what's going on? This doesn't, like, Lord, I don't get it, in my flesh, this trying to understand in my flesh, like, Lord, why isn't this not aligning up with, I know you said that I was going to get my boys, but what is going on here? What is going on here? So just in that process of the frustration, the tiredness, and just, the sadness and the loneliness and the, it's like I know God is there, but there's that moment where it's like, Father, where are you? Where are you? Am I not your child? Where are you? There's moments where it's like, you just really want to bawl. Like there's moments where I was really second guessing, like, God, like I know you're here, but it seems like you're not here. Like what's going on? Like, aren't you God? Aren't you the one that is in control of everything? Aren't you the one that can make things happen? So in that midst, that's how I was feeling, and just having to turn back around the same night and drive all the way back, hurt and just crying and just, I just didn't understand at this time. It was very hurtful, very, very hurtful and very painful and very like, it's like, ouch, it really hurt. So, just going back home and just thinking about all this, I was upset, and at the same time, I just knew that no matter what, God, I know that you're in control. I had to like take a moment and just really, like, Lord, are you really trying to show me something? Like, are you trying to, what is it that I'm missing? But I knew that at the same time that no matter what was going on, that I'm going to get my children. It just didn't look that way at that time, and it just seemed like the years, within the third year, things had turned around where I had got custody. I was able to get custody of the boys. And at the same time, when I got custody of them, it was like I was given just certain instructions to go up there to get them. But this time around, I knew the Lord told me, don't say nothing. Don't even call him. Just go. Just go. And I went, and this was the time that I had got them. This is after 3 years. And what I want to say is that sometimes, a lot of times, I'm not even gonna lie, when you following Christ, and it seems like, there's promises that He speaks to you about. There's promises that, even through the Holy Spirit reveals to you. There's promises that God has for us, and even when it don't look like it, even when it just seems like years later, to be patient, to like, it's easy said than done, but just don't give up on the Father, because in the midst of all this, I was taught how to go to God for everything. Go to Him, because the people that I thought was there, they weren't there. And the people that I thought, was there, was going to be there, they wasn't. There was times, I can speak on other situations on my now, but I just want to focus on this. But it was times where, people say, "Are you okay? If you need me, call me." And then when I would call, they wasn't there. But God was just trying to show me in the midst that I'm here. I'm here. I just want a relationship. I just want you to push. I just want you to understand, yeah, you're going to be upset. You're going to be frustrated, but I'm here. I'm here, Letitia. I'm here to comfort you. I'm here to guide you. And He showed me along the way that in your time being, what can you do? What can you do? Pray, Letitia. Pray. Spend time with me. Spend time with me. Pray about the situation, and I did that. But just knowing that, this verse with Jesus, Matthew 27:46, how even, Jesus being Jesus, when He cried out, with the loud voice, when He said, my God, why have you abandoned me? Even He felt abandoned at that very last time. Like, even, it's a normal feeling to feel that way. It's normal to feel like when the promise doesn't seem like, the promise doesn't look like the promise. Even when Jesus was on a cross, when He cried out, He had a moment. And that wasn't His only moment, but in that moment, He cried out because He felt like He was forsaken. And it's like, I get it, but that doesn't mean that His heart was wrong. He had His heart, but my purpose of saying that is that God knows the heart of His people too. He knows the heart of His people. And God is not a man that He shall lie. Sometimes when things are lengthy and it seems like it's not coming to pass, or even, when you're in a situation where it's like, how is this happening, Lord? Like, I do everything and I serve you, and it doesn't mean that God loves you less, and it doesn't mean that He's not going to do it. It doesn't mean that He's not going to come through. It's just, He's a God that He wants us to love Him. He wants us to have a relationship. He wants us to trust Him. He wants us to lean on Him. He wants us to just give Him His all. He wants us to just pour out to Him. He wants to be our best friend. He wants us for Himself. He is a jealous God. And I just want to say that it's normal to feel like if your promise doesn't look like the promise, like when God speaks to you and He shows you something and it doesn't seem like it's coming to pass, that when it don't seem that way, that He's not going to do it, because He is. He just wants you. He just wants you to gain a relationship. He just wants you to trust Him more. He just wants you to trust Him like we can trust someone like our best friend. He just wants you to trust Him more than a best friend. He wants you to trust you. He wants you to trust Him more than a father. He wants you to trust Him more than a sister. He wants you to trust Him more than your children. And that's where He's trying to get us. He's trying to get us to a place where it don't matter if sometimes the promise don't look like it's there. He just wants that relationship, because God is God. God is like the final destination is heaven. And all that matter is the relationship with him. I just want to throw something else out there. I know a lot of you maybe may not know that, my son had, my oldest son passed away in 2021. And just to think of, right after I got them, I never mentioned this, but after I got them, he wasn't even home for 2 years, 2 full years. It was like a year and a half. And it's like, and I remember, just this process of they was going, my kids was going through some things, and it was like a rough, like they weren't themselves, and they was very hurt, and they was very, it was a lot of trauma. And my oldest son was my main, I was worried about him, and I remember a time where I was so worried, and I heard the Lord say, don't worry about him. He's going to be okay. And it's like that was a promise that I heard from God, and just that he passed away, it seems like the promise didn't come, But at the same time, God's ways is not our ways. Like, I believe that promise is still the truth. Sometimes we may not see the promise, but we have to trust that God is God, and he's not a liar, and that his ways are not our ways. And I just wanted to leave that with somebody, because even though throughout this process and me walking closer with God and me recognizing my word, that my word is truth, it's like the promise to me is a peace of mind. The promise to me is that despite of what goes on, that I know who to call on. I know not to put all my trust in man. I know not to, I know how to, be humble. I know how to pray, and I'm still learning as I move forward. But my thing and my word, my encouragement tonight is that those that are going through things and they want to see things come to pass, and it just seems like it's not coming to pass, to be patient and to continue to seek God's face. Like, no matter how the situation looks, continue to seek his face, because he's like we have to understand that we can't worship him with our flesh. We can't worship him and come to him in our flesh. That we have to be in our spirit. We have to come to him in spirit and in truth. But that's what I wanted to leave tonight. I just want to leave that tonight, and I just thank you for listening. Oh.